This is Kyle Cherry. I'm Peter Bloomer, and we welcome you to Team Thrive by Prevail Online Coaching.
We want to help you build the strength, conditioning, mobility, and nutritional and stress management habits to not just survive, but thrive.
All right, we're going to get into a talk today about how training shapes your identity. This is going to be a little two-part series, but today is going to be specifically sharing a little bit more about my story, kind of my training story, my training history, and how the identity I've been training for has kind of changed a bit over time. So a little bit of a break from our normal, very kind of content, educational focused stuff, but hopefully some takeaways that you guys enjoy and can apply into your own lives.
Yeah, I think this is going to be so much fun. It's really cool to get a better understanding of how we are today based upon the background with where we grew up. And I think there'll be some parallels that you guys might notice in some of your journey as well, and other stuff. You'll be like, that guy's a wacko, So I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
A little bit of both, for sure. So main objectives for the day, we're going to touch on the importance of starting with your why. Everything that you do, but including your training, and then go into story time a little bit. Peter's gonna kind of interview me a little bit about how my identity's changed over time with my training, and then I'll try to share with you a weekly practice that I love to ensure that you are kind of staying on the right path. Hey, are my actions kind of taking me where I want to go? Something I do every Monday myself, and something I do with clients, and so that's how we'll wrap things up.
Sweet.
So, this is a graph I love from James Clear's Atomic Habits, which you've probably heard us reference many times on these talks and in our newsletters and other things. There's different types of goals, almost like layers to an onion. So outcome goals are the most superficial. It doesn't mean they're not helpful, right? They kind of provide direction and, kind of a short-term tangible milestone I'm trying to hit, right? So, yeah, that might be, change my body composition, drop, 1% body fat in the next 3 months, or maybe it's a performance metric of, complete a marathon or squat 400 pounds, whatever that might be. But it's some sort of measurable, outcome you're seeking to hit. Processes are what you're doing to get there. Okay, so, the training routine, show up at the gym 3 days a week, or, hey, I hit my conditioning routine on 2 mornings a week, or I do follow this nutritional action item. What you're doing to get there. But then at the core of all that is your identity. Who are you trying to become? So what is this all about? So one quote I love from James Clear in the book is, good habits can make rational sense, but if they conflict with your identity, you will fail to put them into action. And something I think we can all resonate with. If you don't really see yourself aligning with the action you're trying to pick up, it's not really going to stick very well. If you see yourself as lazy, it's going to be hard to take actions that align differently, right? So starting the mantra of, hey, I am blank, I am this is really powerful, and the actions kind of naturally follow from there.
And a really good classic YouTube video from Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Something that we tend to go back to a lot is if you don't know where you are and where you want to go, it's really hard to, put some meat around that, per se. Having that and who do you want to become, and then, well, how do I transform my life to become that person? That's why the identity is your bullseye, and that's the fundamental piece to making all these things happen.
So I can't say I was super consciously doing this from a young age, but it was kind of fun as we kind of put this talk together to kind of reflect on, hey, well, who was I trying to become at these various points of life, because that's what it's all about. Who are you and who do you want to become? And it might not always be a completely different version of yourself, but it's like, hey, what part of myself am I trying to more truly embody right now, is the way I've phrased the question a lot for people. So we'll transition to story time.
Yeah. So for those of you that can't see the screen, there's how old are you there, Kyle, would you say?
I'm terrible at estimating kids' ages, but somewhere between 7 and 12.
So there we go. Yeah. So there's a little scrawny Kyle with a lot of hair on the beach somewhere.
Santa Cruz Boardwalk. Actually, no, I think this is Lake Tahoe. Santa Cruz is where we normally went every summer, but I think this is actually at Lake Tahoe in the summer. Yeah.
So, that's awesome. So, how would you say you perceived yourself then from what you can remember?
Yeah, I mean, probably not too many conscious thoughts going on in the brain, but I remember one thing around this age that kind of got me into training for the first time. Was, as you can see again, pretty gangly dude. I was like a decent athlete, just because I liked sports, and you're in a small little bubble and you think you're a good athlete because you don't really know that many other people in the world. But I was hanging with a group of friends, and I remember we were just, messing around, talking and debating as to like, who would be able to beat the other person up in a fight? Who would win if we just started wrestling right now or whatever. And it was deemed out of the group that I would be last. It was like, oh, hey, Asa would beat Jose, and Jose would beat Kevin, and Kevin would beat Kyle. And those actually are real friends. I hope they're all doing well. I haven't talked to them in a long time. I don't remember if that was the exact hierarchy, if maybe there's other people present in the group, but I just remember something along those lines happened, and it was deemed that I was going to be last. And I was like, well, that sucks. I don't like that, you know? And I remember being a little pissed off about it. And, you know, we weren't actually going to fight. We were all friends, but it was just, I felt incapable, right? I didn't like that feeling. I wanted to feel more capable. I wanted to feel like I could hold my own. And I went home and I started a push-up and sit-up routine that night, as far as I remember, at least in the very near future. And I kept that little push-up and sit-up routine going for a long time, all the way until middle school.
Did you see any changes from the beginning? Was it more in your mind? Did you see any physical changes? Did you hear anything from any of your buddies?
If we have any pre-puberty listeners out there, you're not going to get crazy jacked before hormones start contributing to the picture. But I remember I was obviously got stronger. You could feel that you were getting stronger, just a function of what you're able to do. I feel like I did get like a little bit of muscle mass on my frame going, but just by a hair. But I definitely felt more capable. And because, you know, okay, I was a little less afraid of like playing like tackle football on the lawn, which we would do because I think this is predates, you know, schools being crazy concerned about injuries constantly. So we'd still be able to play tackle football and, you know, be more physical playing basketball. And again, I just felt a little more confident. And then that magnified more in middle school. I started doing P90X in the garage, actually. My dad had done various things like that throughout his life. And I think around middle school, based on the belief at the time that you shouldn't lift weights until you're 13, which is not necessarily true. Quick sidebar, that's based on the belief that your growth plates are going to get messed with. And that's the risk of injury to your growth plates is much higher playing recreational sports than it is weightlifting, and you should also play recreational sports. Pros far outweigh the cons. Sidebar over. So I started doing P90X, and then obviously around that time, the hormones are now starting to contribute. So I remember that's when I actually started to see more transformation. And I also got sprouted up height-wise during that time. So, you know, seemingly artificial reasons to get more confident. I think I remember like reflecting on that, like, oh, am I only confident because I started working out and got taller? But it's about it's part of the identity change, right? Of, oh, this is something I can control. And now that's starting to knock over dominoes in other areas of my life. Also.
Did you and your buddies ever have another like, hey, where are we at now?
I don't remember that conversation happening explicitly again. But I do remember one time we actually were boxing. One of us got boxing gloves, and that was a good little test.
Yeah.
That I think I finished second in the boxing matches. You know, completely harmless fun. Again, we're very scrawny kids still. To sort of reiterate this, I'm not trying to promote a toxic childhood here where all you do is fight to prove your masculinity. But we were just having a good time, and I felt more that I could hold my own. I was not afraid of the competition, which I would have been a few years prior.
And I just can't overemphasize that how much just training in general can help your mental well-being. Again, my story, we'll get to it another time, but I very clearly remember how much my confidence changed and helped in all aspects of my life once I started doing something I had control over. So it's super cool to hear that. Okay, now as we move forward, we're getting into high school. What's a picture? What do we got going on now?
There we go. So that's post P90X me right there. That's freshman year of high school, playing basketball there.
So he's way, way taller here, pretty lean, has, again, a good full head of hair, and even got a little muscles popping out of his shoulders and arms.
Little deltoid going on there.
And nice big baggy shirts and shorts, so it's a little hard to tell there. So when we get into this stage, what's your identity now and why?
So I felt like tough at this point, which is kind of what I was building towards from the first time. Like, oh, I'm tough. I can hold my own. Like playing basketball when I got to high school, like I thought I was more of a skill player in early years, and you're playing in, you know, crummy non-competitive leagues. Getting to high school and around some more serious kids, like, okay, I'm not the best ball handler anymore, not the best shooter anymore, but I can be like the scrappiest. I can fight for rebounds and set screens and talk crap to guys who are bigger than me, and you know, I can kind of play that role. So that was definitely the mindset at the time. So that was, you know, again, a sign of success of the training up to that point. But I remember I still didn't feel confident enough to play football. There was still like a little bit of, oh, that seems like too intense for me, like a little too loud. This is more my comfort zone. Let me stay in my comfort bubble. But I remember I thought that freshman year of high school, seeing how close the guys were who played football, it just seemed like something I missed out on. Like they were a tighter group of dudes. I was like, I feel like I missed out on that. Like I think I should do that. So after this freshman basketball season, I started weight training with the football guys as they prepped for the following year. And
what did that training look like compared to what you were doing, let's say, 8th, 9th grade?
It wasn't, I loved my JV football coaches. There's many stories that I will never share on a forum like this from them. But they were a good group of guys. You know, they like, again, kind of continued to channel that I am tough identity, but the training was by no means advanced or scientific. And so that sophomore year football season still went great. I loved it. But leaving that season, I remember my friend's uncle, a good friend of mine named Matt, his uncle Jaime, was kind of my first true coach. And he was kind of ribbing me after the season, saying like, you're not actually strong. Like, you're not as strong as you think, like his exact line. He has a very unique way of talking. He was like, oh, you might be sexy, because I was this lean kid. I did my P90X. I had my little muscles going on, but you're not strong. You might be sexy, but you're not strong. I was like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. I want to be strong. I want to prove this guy wrong. So he ended up taking me, Matt, and one other friend, Sean, through powerlifting during off-season and the ensuing off-season. So over the next 2 years, we got strong. We were really strong. Old school gym, and I turned into that right there.
Nice. Little meathead now on the screen. So how old are you here in this picture?
That's only 2 years later, believe it or not.
Okay, so it's a junior year? So around 16,
that's
17?
end of junior year. I went from 165 pounds to 225 pounds in less than 2 years.
Wow.
The guidance of Jaime. But he got us into powerlifting. The picture here is at a powerlifting meet that the three of us did, which was a super cool experience. And so like definitely got very strong for my age, and got much larger. You can see my face looks very different here. Pretty unrecognizable from the 2 years prior. But successfully accomplished that new identity of, okay, not only am I like a tough, scrappy guy, but I'm a pretty strong dude now at this point in time. That's definitely how I saw myself, and the training was pretty single-minded, geared towards that. Pick up heavy stuff.
And were you still playing basketball? Now you're playing football? Is that what?
I actually never played formal basketball again. As soon as I played football the first time, I loved it so much that I actually, like, basketball was then not violent enough, just to put it simply. I went to tryouts the next year, and I mid tryouts, I actually told the coach, I actually would rather just get in the gym and train for the next football season. Wow. So that's kind of what started the powerlifting.
And that's what started even where you are today, where you just had this love of the weight room, was from him.
Yeah.
And at this time, and the changes that you saw.
Yeah. I was already into it and interested, but the powerlifting was kind of what I actually almost started to like that, almost even more than football by the time high school was over. Like, I loved that meet. At the time of doing that powerlifting meet, I thought I was going to do competitive powerlifting for forever. Like, that's kind of what I thought was going to be my thing.
Well, just for fun, what were your lifts? Do you remember?
I back squatted 445.
Nice.
I deadlifted in the meet 5. I tried 505 and failed it at my knees. Jump. I was fired up, lots of adrenaline going. I'd already guaranteed the win, so I was like, let me just try to hit 500. I deadlifted 485 later that, I think, which was still my PR to this day. I've never deadlifted more than I deadlifted in high school. I broke that squat in college by 20 pounds. But that was a 445, 455, and a 300. No, in the meet, I think it was a 290 or 295 bench because you had to pause. In the meet, you had to pause, which I think my PR at the time in high school was 295. I think I hit 300 in college, something like that. But I think in the meet it was 290, I want to say.
Sweet. That's fun.
Yeah.
So a little scrawny guy, and then now we're becoming tough, and then moving into I'm strong. Yeah. And very clearly you changed your behaviors and your training program to reflect that. And it seems like you achieved the desired result.
And also changed dramatically.
Yeah, so maybe just a quick touch on there. In order to gain, 65 to 220, is that what you said?
Yeah.
In 2 years.
In 2 years.
What the heck did you do?
I was probably synonymous with the guy. Like, if you didn't know me in high school, but you knew of me, you probably knew me as the guy always eating a bagel sandwich.
What was on this bagel?
That was my method to Jaime was not a nuanced nutrition coach, but he just knew, hey, you need to eat a lot if you want to get heavier, which that logic is true. And so my convenient way to do it was almost just never be hungry. I would eat a big breakfast at home, and then I would bring to school 3 bagel sandwiches with peanut butter and chocolate chips on them. Delicious combo, very calorie dense combo. And then
no milk. I mean,
there's liquid with me, water. Then I'd have trail mix or Cliff Bars or other stuff, maybe some fruit. There wasn't a whole lot of color on the plate back in those days. It was just sheer intake. So throughout the day, I'd be eating 3 bagel sandwiches and a lot of other, in hindsight, calorie-dense stuff. At the time, to me, it was all just food. I just needed to eat more food. Yeah. There wasn't a lot of logic behind what I was doing. But in hindsight, it's that worked because it was very calorie-dense food. And then I'd go home and eat a dinner until I was, stuffed, uncomfortably full. Sometimes we were always eating family dinners growing up, but around this time, sometimes I would make my own food in order to make enough for myself. Or I'd make 3 ginormous loaded quesadillas, or a whole box of pasta and just eat the entire thing, which would take an hour. So again, not a lot of nuance to making sure I hit my protein palms and my color, and then get a lot of other calorie dense food. It was just food, more food. But at making me gain weight, it was effective.
But and then there, and again, so many, especially younger kids too, they're just so scared to get out of their comfort zone. Was that easy to gain that much weight? Like again, in eating when even if it tasted good, I'm sure there's plenty of times I don't want to eat this.
Yeah, there's my friends will tell you a couple stories of like watching me pretty uncomfortably eat, but that was the mission. The mission was to get bigger. Every week trying to see that scale tick up a little bit higher. The first year of at the end of my sophomore year after football season, I went from 165 to 200. That wasn't that hard. Still, like I was eating like aggressively, but it was pretty good weight most of the time.
And how tall were you at this time?
Right about 6 feet.
Okay, yeah, so that fits decent on your frame.
But then going from 200 to 225 the following off season, that was a little. So I didn't like that as much. Getting even up to 215, I still felt pretty good. The last 10 pounds was more uncomfy, and I started to feel heavy. But part of the issue during this time, which we'll get into a little bit in the next chapter when I tried to be a little more athletic, was that I got so strong so fast and trained so one-dimensionally that I was losing a lot of speed. So even in the first year, going from 165 to 200, I had to move down to be an alignment as opposed to a tight end and linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had gotten a lot stronger, but now for my position, I wasn't like relatively speaking that much stronger.
And you're kind of small too, relative.
And so that's why I needed to double down. That's why the next year I was like, I need to put on even more size, even more strength, because now I'm in this new position. And I was better at that position. I was better at being a fast for a lineman than a slow for a linebacker. But I was like, I need to be heavier to do this position well. So hence the doubling down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So we finished high school. Did you play anything collegiately?
No. At the time, I was planning on competing in powerlifting throughout college and beyond. That was the plan.
So what changed there? Why did you stop?
Well, not long after, I'll pull up the next picture there. I started to work at a physical therapy clinic during college that was right next to this gym, Athlon, which I didn't work for Athlon officially until after college, but it was a performance gym very similar to Prevail. So this was kind of my first window into more well-rounded training, seeing PT prevent injury, and Athlon was a very analogous to Prevail, a performance-focused gym that was training a variety of athletes and general population how to just move better and live better. And that's when I realized, oh man, I'm really strong. I'm stronger than everyone I'm around, but I cannot move my body very well at all. I'm slow. I'm actually not that coordinated. But again, I realized a little bit playing sports, but I kind of moved positions around to make up for that. And so it was kind of being in that environment that I realized, I'm pretty one-dimensional. And my rate of progression in strength lifts alone was slowing, which is just how life works.
For sure.
And so with the trajectory I was on, I was like, man, I'm going to be world class, And then once I realized, this actually gets a lot harder to make a little more improvement, it became more appealing to me to learn how to do it all.
So what would you say now? Okay, now that you're in college and just finishing college, you're noticing these deficits from previous training programs. How would you have said you identified yourself at that point?
So I wanted to be a better athlete at that time, which is kind of late. Like now I'm not actually playing competitive sports anymore, but I'd say, again, I went from being tough to being strong to now I want to be a more well-rounded. And so, learned how to be more mobile, learned how to, start to still didn't know the nuances of it very well, but knew how to, at least I should include some jumping, some speed work, some sprinting, is moving better. I remember early on at the PT clinic, a PT had me demo a thoracic rotation drill, not even for advanced athletes, for a Parkinson's class. And I did it so poorly that she was like, whoa, okay, God, like get out of here. Like, let me demo this. And so that was a wake-up call. I was like, yeah, I did this. Like, I was not satisfactory enough for a Parkinson's population. I should probably start to work on some things. So it became more of just addressing weaknesses was kind of the main focus during this stretch, even though I didn't have a competitive athletic outlet to showcase these things. I just wanted to be, hey, can I be at the 90th percentile on all these things as opposed to the 99th percentile of one thing and poor.
And how did you do? How did you feel like your training reflected? You hit most of those?
Pretty good. Yeah. I didn't know the nuance enough to have like clear metrics on all these things, but I was able to maintain strength pretty well. I still broke a couple of my strength PRs during this time, just slightly, while bringing my weight down from 225 back to around 205 for most of college, around there. I could still run like a sub 6 minute mile. I at least was like comfortable sprinting and jumping, even though I don't think I really had the ability to track to measure those things yet. But I just felt way better than I did when I was 225 pounds. So, pretty good considering that I was also in college and doing all the things that you do when you're in college. So I was pretty proud of my performance at that time.
That's awesome. No, that's so cool to hear that aspect of your journey. And I'm sure in the role that you were in, that became very important. Like when you got called out and, hey,
Yep.
you can't move, buddy. And then I'm sure coaching other up and coming aspiring athletes and older people just to be able to get in these positions that you're asking other people to get into.
Yeah. By the time that chapter was over, I felt like I could do all those things well, So yeah, I worked at the PT clinic for 3 years during college. Learned that I didn't quite want to go down that path. There's a couple things I just didn't love about that. And it's when I started to coach just part-time at Athlon at the gym next door, that within a week, I was like, this is it. Like, I love this. Like, I liked helping people put the whole puzzle together as opposed to just fixing one thing. So then I worked at Athlon for, in total, 2 years, if you count the part-time. I think it was as a full-time employee. COVID was thrown in the middle of that. So, a year and some change or so. But that's where I kind of fully got into trying to learn how to do everything well, not just as an individual, but now as a coach too. Okay, now I want to be able not only to do this well, but I want to be able to explain this well and help someone else do this well and know enough to, whenever I get asked a question, if I don't know the answer, that bothers me, I want to go learn how to do that thing,
Awesome.
So kind of started that, kind of continued the learn how to do everything, be a jack of all trades trajectory there.
That's awesome. No, I think it's just so helpful for as your journey from kind of being a rookie to mastery. It's so important to be able to demo it yourself, and then can I teach it and get other people to do what they can't do, and a lot of it based upon your knowledge and your experiences. So, all right. So moving on from Athlon, now you're an athlete. Now we got Kyle and Riley and a beautiful wedding day pic.
There we go.
So who's this young man with this beautiful lady?
Stumbled into her at the end of that previous chapter in San Luis Obispo, and then followed her down to Santa Barbara, where she found her first kind of post-college job. She's a little younger than me. So that's when I stumbled into Prevail, which worked out super, super well. A phenomenal place to learn and grow. And I was scared to leave it to move to Santa Barbara, but it was a no-brainer because this girl was awesome. And I stumbled into just more phenomenal mentorship from this guy right here, from Mr. Peter Bloomert. During this chapter, it was just kind of a continued quest to, continue to be kind of a jack of all trades. But what Peter specifically exemplified for me was like really walking the walk, just did everything like to a T himself that he asked other people to do. And I really looked up to that. And I had identified as a leader for a long time, kind of dating back maybe to some of these like earlier chapters. That was a part of my identity, but I hadn't really thought about how that translated to my fitness until this time. And it was the earlier quote about like habits not sticking when they conflict with your identity. Thankfully, I started to notice that with bad habits. Like I wanted to be more like Peter. And therefore, when I saw like a habit, but Peter wouldn't do that. That conflicts with the identity I'm trying to build. It like, I don't want that habit anymore, And so the I'm a leader identity is kind of what took over at that point. And that's like my training didn't change that much, but it was more the lifestyle piece of sort of learn how to eat way better, just take better care of myself, do less things that aren't that good for your health that you tend to do during college, and just like really cleaned all that up and kind of just built a new, like this is the adult version of myself, And so, with that, hit some still some new training PRs because I was doing things smarter and more efficiently and feeling myself better and sleeping better. But also I think the lifestyle just backed up what I was doing more, and I just felt more like the best version of myself. So I got, body composition changed dramatically as a result of doing those things, but it was really more about the mentality of like, what would the leader version of myself do? It's okay if maybe my peers aren't doing this yet, I'd be a leader. So it's like, let me set the tone. Maybe be the first person to make this new change in their life,
Yeah. And it's just, I love that too. It's just why be average when you can be excellent? And most people fit in that big bucket. And then how do we get ourselves to be an outlier so that we stand out and we're clearly above the rest?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And speaking of cleaned up, he also did a really good job of the top of his head with cleaning that up. So
I am bald became the identity.
And kind of a fun fact, I don't know how many times, Peter, Kyle, like from behind, who knew who each person was. So for me, that was a very nice compliment. Oh, Kyle. Oh, no, sorry. That's not me, but sure.
The last year in Santa Barbara, there's at least a weekly occurrence for sure.
But he did put me onto the razor that he got for Christmas. And I was like, I'm jealous. What are you doing, buddy?
Freebird razor.
A little plug there for you guys.
We'll get a new sponsor soon.
Yeah. I got one more question real quick on that. So if you could go back through these different identities and teach yourself something that you know now that you wish you would have known then, what would it be and why?
I mean, I'm happy with where it ended up. So I wouldn't the answer is always kind of, you probably wouldn't change anything if it risked changing the outcome. Like those earlier days where even if there were things that now I'd be like, that was a very inefficient way to get there or not a suboptimal way to get there. It's still like, you just learn the value of working hard and like, dude, you just show up and do stuff consistently. It'll get you there, even if the plan's imperfect. And I think that I wouldn't want to lose that lesson. But if I was going to do one thing, I would maybe have that I'm an athlete identity happen sooner. You know, I still could have gotten really freakishly strong during like that high school window, but also like sprinted once a week, and that would have been dramatically better. I wouldn't have shown up to camp 6 months later and like, I haven't sprinted in 6 months, and now I'm 35 pounds heavier. Like, this is a lot harder.
You go with the lineman, buddy.
So yeah, like this, I would have done more of those athletic things sooner. I still would have eaten like a madman, but I would at least would have known how to do it a little bit cleaner, a little bit smarter, a little bit healthier. At the time, I think it's just I would have done some of these things more efficiently, but I don't know if I would have changed the steps to get there necessarily. You know, I'm thankful for all the lessons picked up along the way. And it's even part of what makes me love coaching is because I know there were inefficiencies in my path, and it's fun to help other people get rid of those inefficiencies.
Yeah. And I know the other thing I love about your story too is that you learned by just doing it. Like, so many people ask questions and there's no action behind it. They're just knowledge. It's like, no, go do it. That's one of my biggest pieces of advice to young coaches is like, do it. See what happens. See what the results are for yourself. You know, sample size of one, maybe grab a buddy if you want. But there's so much learning just in the trenches, putting in the work, you know, on the days you want to, the days you don't want to, and you show up because of the identity that you have, not because your feelings say, today's a good day, today's not a good day. You know, I guarantee, I don't know how many days you had in this journey where you showed up and put in the work, even though you'd rather have been doing something else.
And I think I would also just add the value of being around the right people. I think every part of this journey, the first one is pretty self-guided. You know, my dad was a helpful, you know, nurtured kind of. My dad's a huge role model for me in many other ways, and he helped me with this early stage too of kind of getting me into training. And you know, maybe Tony Horton, the P90X guy, was a role model. You know, but that stage was, you know, mostly me alone in the garage just doing my thing. But then every of these next chapters, there's like a figure. You know, Jaime in high school. You know. John Grisanti, PT, and Ryan Joyner, owner of Athlon, and then Peter in the last stage of Santa Barbara, that like was a very helpful role model as I was shaping that identity. You know, be in the right room, you know, be around the right people for sure.
For sure. And people who've, like Kyle said, been there, done that, and then now can help minimize and share about some of their mistakes and how to make your journey better, more efficient, or clear with the direction that it's going. So that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course. Thanks for the inspiration. So just to kind of put it on one slide, if people are visual, you know, kind of during that I am tough phase, hey, that was middle school P90X in the garage. For the I am strong phase, that was, you know, heavy powerlifting with an old school coach and gym, some fun characters around there. You know, the I am an athlete phase was, you know, inclusion of more of a well-rounded approach. And then the I am a leader phase was more about the lifestyle improvements, you know, so just kind of how my training evolved as like the identity evolved. And, you know, there's various outcome goals along the way here, you know, the big powerlifting numbers that I was focusing on, or, you know, different speed metrics or things like that, or body composition during the lifestyle improvements. Really, it was like the identity was the driver of those training tweaks. Stumbled on my words there. So one takeaway that I'd love to maybe kind of share with you all, and then Peter will have another one when it's his turn to do his story, is, you know, write down your identity goal. Start with that. You know, hey, what is that identity that I'm seeking? That you know, could be one of the ones I mentioned maybe resonates with you, but, you know, maybe it's a role model, or I have clients get really specific, and I'm a high performing medical professional, or I'm a strong old lady. You know, it's all good. Like whatever resonates with you. And then put it somewhere visible. So maybe that's on, you know, I have a whiteboard right here up above my desk that I have, you know, various things right now that I want to see every day. You know, could put it somewhere visible, and then pick one action to focus on. Hey, what would that version of myself do that I'm not currently doing consistently right now? And then do a little weekly audit. So, hey, did my actions this week reinforce that desired identity? This is part of an audit I do myself every Monday. As a business owner, really, it's kind of more of a business audit. Hey, how did the last week go? You know, kind of looking at some various business metrics, but then also a part of that audit is, you know, was I who I want to be this week? You know, because if that's the case, everything else is gonna stem from there. So that's something I put into weekly check-in text for clients as well. And hey, at the end of the day, with all the different various stuff that happened, at the end of the day, did you act like who you wanted to act this week?
And I'd encourage all of these lines too is for the accountability piece, share with somebody on this, because I think it's so helpful to, hey, this is what I want, and I'm putting myself out there. This is a little uncomfortable, but it's going to help me become the person who I want to become. And I'm going to make sure somebody else can be there to help you celebrate on those, when your actions reinforce it. And other times, like, I didn't quite hit that. Okay, what can I do? Sometimes you might get a little lost and you might need a little encouragement or somebody to just kind of help guide you a little bit. So I think that's just such a helpful piece to helping you achieve whatever that identity goal is.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully that was enjoyable. Everybody got to laugh at young scrawny me.
And make sure you look at the pictures. If you're listening to this, go back and look at the pictures. They're awesome.
Cool. And thank you to Peter for the mentorship, especially in that final chapter, and for taking the time today.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.